Discover the amazing, clinically proven health benefits of original Tahitian noni. Original Tahitian noni includes powerful antioxidants, adaptogens, nutrients, and phytonutrients to naturally boost energy levels, immune system function, and overall health. Meticulously sourced from French Polynesia, this is the original superfruit. Accept no imitations. Original Tahitian noni. Visit ATR Health at alchemicaltechrevolution.com. and click on the Shop Here tab for more details. Listening to the Alchemical Tech Revolution, and I am your host, Wayne McRoy. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the world tonight. We're going to discuss the system and the Brotherhood. This is going to be an interesting topic for tonight. This is going to cover exactly what has been established in this world by those who control this world, and who exactly are they? What is it that they have established here? It's all about social engineering, ladies and gentlemen, and we are beginning to see the fruition of this great work of sorts of these dark occultists who run things in this world. And we're going to see a lot of the mechanisms of action that they've used to put this in place over the course of time, and how it's all coalescing together right now in this world in which we live. We're going to be reading tonight from a paper titled The Brotherhood and the Manipulation of Society by Ivan Fraser and Mark Beeston. Now, it's interesting. I tried to research these two gentlemen. I could find very little on them other than the fact that they have some associations that would seem to indicate that perhaps they know a little something about the quote-unquote Brotherhood and this manipulation of society that's gone on. You see, Mark Beeston is the founder and managing partner of a financial services venture capital fund called Illuminate Financial. Interesting choice of words there, isn't it? And I don't know. I'm assuming this is the same guy, that these are the same guys who actually put this paper together. And it is said that it's derived from the writings of Ivan Fraser, who, for all intents and purposes, I'm not sure exactly who that is. When you do a Google search for Ivan Fraser, you find that he's an author, an artist, a photographer, and a YouTube creator. He has a listing on IMDb, and I don't know if this is the same person or not. He's a freelance production designer. And maybe this is him, maybe it's not. It's hard to find information on these guys because it would appear this paper is the only thing of notoriety that you can find about these guys. Now, this is said to be derived from a book written by Mr. Fraser from chapter 13 of that book, interestingly enough, how they always seem to choose the numbers here. And they list the title of the book when you look at this on archive.org. If you go on Internet Archive, you can find this paper on there, and it does make reference to where it came from. So Internet Archive has this listed: The Brotherhood and the Manipulation of Society. That is the name of the paper. And if you look up Ivan Fraser underneath it, it says about him that he wrote this other book. I'll get you the title in a moment here. having a hard time. My internet is loading up very slowly for some reason right now. So it says that this paper is actually a 10-part series of well-written articles that explains the makeup and organization of the Illuminati elites who are behind the New World Order and globalization scheme. And it is an excellent tutorial, according to the excerpt put here on Internet Archive. And it says it's taken from Chapter 13 of Ivan Fraser's book called Lifting the Veil, The Sign of the Sword. And I can't find this book listed anywhere online. So I wonder, what's up with this? I don't know who these two gentlemen who wrote this paper are on about here. I don't know what their background is. It would seem likely that the two gentlemen that I found in a brief internet search may be the ones responsible for this. As far as their purposes for putting it out there, I couldn't say for certain. It would seem maybe they want to expose the control scheme that's been in place, or maybe they're just gloating if they're part of the whole system. Hard to say for sure, or maybe they're just recording it for posterity's sake. It's hard to say, but this is what we have available, and this is the only thing you can find written about this by these two gentlemen. It is said, like I said, to be derived from some other book, which I can't find. If anybody has access to that or a digital file of that, please hit me up with that. I would very much appreciate that. But this is what we have to work with right now, and this actually gives a pretty concise and accurate breakdown of things when you look at the surface level of all of this, and that's why it's important that we look at this. So we're going to get right into the paper, which is titled The Brotherhood and the Manipulation of Society. And they started out with a quote here from 1984 from George Orwell, and it says, quote, "He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past." And that is a very true statement. You see, George Orwell, in his own way, told us all about these things. Same kind of thing going on there, I would suspect. That seems to be the intention of this paper, the same type of intention Orwell had in writing his book 1984. So we're going to get right to the introduction here. And you'll see as we continue tonight what this is really all about, and why it's important that we look into the history of all of this to see where we're at today. From the moment our senses first register the presence of our parents, we are being shown the way that life apparently is. Through no fault of ours or theirs, our parents begin the programming process as their views of life, shaped by their education, employment, and the media, are imposed on us. Formal education through schools, colleges, and universities continues the systematic indoctrination where the correct views and interpretations of science, history, and society result in exam passes and the ability to get on in life. Alternative views and the rejection of establishment education lead to supposedly lesser jobs and a struggle against economic poverty. Our entire understanding of the world and current affairs is filtered through the mass media, interpreted by journalists and so-called experts. Their views become our views simply because we are not offered any alternatives. To overcome daily problems within society, we turn to elected representatives of our community. We give our decision-making abilities to these few people who are increasingly remote as local council power is removed to national government and ever more to Europe. Gonna pause for a moment here, folks. So the whole premise here is from the very earliest of times, right from our birth and inception in this world, we are programmed into this system that has been designed by the controlling factions of this world. That's the point they're trying to make here in the opening paragraph here. Let's continue on. Our experience of life is determined by the framework around our society. The basic premise is that the goal of each individual should be to become a minute part in the global machine of consumerism led by Western multinational corporations and banks. Every other consideration is subordinate to the prime motivation of profit. Obviously, those in the positions of influence, politicians, bankers, corporate executives, media moguls, have been, according to their own definition, successful within the system. And the system is with a capital S in this case, ladies and gentlemen. So they have an interest in maintaining the status quo at all costs. This framework shapes every aspect of our life through education, the media, health care, cultural and sporting events, religion, etc. With these framing conditions in place, the system regulates itself. Individuals with attitudes that suit the perpetuation of the system achieve status and influence within it. Those who accept the establishment rules soon find ways to impose those rules. Those who are blind to the exploitive realities of consumerism attain positions to promote it. Regardless of how the framework came to be imposed, the truth is that the same attitudes control education, media, governments, and banks, and therefore exert an irrepressible influence over every aspect of our lives, our thoughts, and opinions. And I'm going to pause for a moment here, folks, just to point out that the authors of this piece are not entirely wrong in their assessment therein. This is certainly true. We have been indoctrinated from a very young age to accept the encroachment of this system and to work within the bounds of this system. And we'll get to exactly what this system is as we continue through here tonight. But I find it very intriguing that they're talking about this whole psychological premise of the system. It's a self-perpetuating system. It's analogous to the Matrix movie. That was an absolutely true movie, folks. If you could read the allegory within it, it gives you a true synopsis of how the world works. And it may be a science fiction allegory, but it certainly holds truths within it. And maybe some of that science fiction is not so much fiction after all. We shall see as time unfolds here, but let's continue with the reading. The vast majority of the world's population are merely sheep happily following the herd. Whatever is broadcast in the media as being desirable to the masses suddenly and miraculously becomes desired by the masses. Whatever our neighbor owns or achieves becomes the object of great envy, and we lust to acquire what we believe to be ours by right. Thus, we are shown a solution to a problem, any old solution to anything which interferes with our need to follow the latest trends. We accept it without question and cease to seek any further for ourselves. Problems abound, and so do solutions, but it is the easiest and most profitable proffered option, which is seized by the majority, whilst the minority are trampled underfoot in the stampede to acquire the latest object of idolatry. And just like sheep who follow blindly and without question the direction of the herd, we are led through the gates of a pen to be confined at the shepherd's convenience until it is time for the final journey, once again without hesitation and happy in the knowledge that we are with the in crowd through the gates of the slaughterhouse. However, this framework has not been constructed by chance or appeared by accident. It is a deliberate policy which has been implemented over the centuries and continues with even more and ever more sinister repercussions today. It is the identities of these shepherds, their methods and motivation with which the following is concerned. So the whole point here is this system has been established and built for a reason, very purposely and deliberately over the course of time. And that is what is being pointed out here by the authors of this piece. And we're going to get a little bit more into that. This system, as we see it, well, it's the coming beast system, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is. It is the precursor, the forerunner of the beast system. And certainly it has been established very well in this world. And we do follow along with the system because we know no other way to do things. That's the whole point, and they've taken advantage of this. And who are they, and why exactly have they set it up this way? Well, we're going to get into that, so let's continue with the reading. Since biblical times, the esoteric knowledge outlined briefly in this writing has been largely withheld from the majority of people throughout the world. Initially, this information was the remnant of Atlantean knowledge, but was gradually dispersed and further diluted by cataclysmic events such as the Great Flood. Throughout the ages, lost information has been returned to the collective consciousness of mankind via prophets and channelers. Great mystery schools, such as the Essene Order, set themselves apart in order to carry forward this knowledge via carefully selected initiates. These initiates were the mystics and magi, as well as the scholars, healers, and philosophers, such as Pythagoras, who, it is said, was very much influenced by the Druid culture. Gonna pause for a moment here. So now you could hear a little bit of the beliefs of the authors inherent here. You could see their bias in these things. Of course, they attach this back to the Essenes and to the Greek scholars like Pythagoras. And these are at the core of much of the mystery school teachings. So they have this association that they're making with that. They seem to add credence to that information as being truthful. Now, if you've listened to this broadcast for any length of time, you know we've gone through a lot of this stuff ad nauseum, and there are certain truths that are present within the teachings of these secret schools, these secret society groups, certainly, but there's always that little bit of poison mixed in, and it's no different with this, because when you go back and you look at the Essenes, well, these were some of the major arbiters of the philosophy of Gnosticism. So you can see that the authors of this work seem to have a Gnostic predisposition behind them. And that's not saying anything necessarily bad against the authors. This is important information to get out. But this is their worldview, and perhaps they're writing about this because they understand what has been leveraged in this way through the use of Gnosticism and some of these various other teachings. And of course, they try to attach it back to the Druidic culture as well, crossing over into the British Isles with a lot of this to bring it back into our English language. So let's go ahead and we'll continue reading here. Secrecy was maintained by these orders to avoid persecution and to prevent the very powerful information from falling into the hands of those who would use it for unbalanced reasons. Gonna pause for a moment here. Now, once again, you see their inherent bias coming forward. They will use this excuse. Well, they had to keep this information hidden, you see, because the church would persecute them. That only goes so far. These bits of secret information have been withheld from the masses for a very long time, even preceding the church age. So the excuse that the church would do something nefarious against them for espousing these beliefs, that's kind of a fallacy in and of itself, but it is the popular go-to excuse for why these secret society groups keep secrets. Well, they don't want to be persecuted by the church. It's a misnomer. Always has been. It's a handy excuse for them to withhold valuable information from the masses in order to maintain their grip on power and have some type of an advantage over others. We've covered this stuff ad nauseum before, but certainly this seems to be the belief system of the authors here. You see, they maintain this secrecy because they didn't want to be persecuted by the mainstream church powers, and they wanted to keep this information hidden and secret so that those who are unworthy don't get a hold of it and use it. Well, what's been done with this? Well, largely it's the ones who have held this information in secret for all of these ages untold are the ones who have misused it and leveraged it in order to manipulate the masses. And I think that's kind of what they're getting to here. But let's continue with the reading. Knowledge was concealed within myth and fable, often passed between generations by word of mouth alone, as in the case of the Celtic Druids. Any written documents were carefully ciphered, with the keys to the code known only to the selected initiates. Covens formed throughout the world and maintained secrecy through secret signals and codes which would reveal their meeting places. This practice persists today amongst secret orders such as the occultists and the Freemasons, etc. Gonna pause for a moment. Yes, it does. Still goes on today. They still use their secret codes and signals. And you have to have the proper cipher in order to decode whatever the message is in the symbology. And they do get it right with a lot of this. They're telling you in no uncertain terms that they do this through myth and fable. That's where a lot of this knowledge is concealed, where the symbology is concealed. It's the symbol inherent there. And if you're not familiar with the old myths, if you haven't had this classical education training, then you don't have a clue as to what's being referenced a lot of times when you see a symbol. But let's get back to this. Eventually, a large number of sects, which were initially subdivisions of essentially the same orders, began to lose sight of the original purity of their doctrines. Gradual misinterpretation of codes and myths, as well as the uprising of egotistical desires, caused many of the groups to become separated in their intent. Some of these have developed into cult organizations and religions. Luciferic influence has seen to it that most dogmatic religion owes more to the misunderstanding of basic truths than anything else. Differences are amplified and seen as more important to followers of such creeds than the common ties between them, all due to misinterpretation of the same fundamental knowledge. All of the world's major religions share a pagan origin, but have gradually moved their sights further and further to the left of center, where truth inevitably lies. And I'm going to pause for a moment here. So some of what they're saying here is true, and of course it's peppered with this, how should we say this delicately, this disdain towards mainstream Christianity or mainstream religion. They're not wrong. Much of religion has dogmatized many things and have veered very far from the truth. But you can't say that religion is one of the major outlets of this. It's very much the same within these secret society groups and occult organizations. They have all dogmatized their belief systems and inverted their belief systems in this misunderstanding. And so, like I said before, not entirely wrong here, but you have to be careful in how you approach some of these things. But let's continue on. So they say here, despite this, some of the purer mystery schools have survived through the ages in areas all over the world. The ancient Egyptian magicians, the ancient Greek philosophers, the Celtic druids, American Indian shaman, Australian Aboriginal shaman, and Oriental magicians have all possessed arcane knowledge pertaining to the true nature of creation. Going to pause for a moment just to point out. You'll notice the strange absence of any type of Christian mystics in this breakdown, or their Jewish ancestry, the Hebrew. In any of this, the traditions therein are absent in the list provided here. You notice he goes back to the Greeks and the Celtic druids, primarily here, and the Egyptians. They always tie it back to Egypt. They always do. And yes, we do have some truths pertaining to this being presented, but you'll notice there's a bias inherent in the writing. And none of us is immune to our own personal biases, but certainly you cannot completely bypass a very important component to Western culture and disavow that in much the way that's been done here. Now, I don't know if it's intentional on the author's parts here or not, but it's certainly implied in what's being read here. So that being the case, we have to keep that in the back of our minds as well. You see, most of the foundation of our Western culture relies in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Not so much the Greeks or the Roman tradition or the tradition of the Celts or even the American Indians or anything else. These pagan roots that, yes, all cultures have ties back to pagan roots. Pagan simply means of nature. That is all. So they're not incorrect in that assessment, but they seem to set it up on a higher pedestal as compared to something like Christianity or some other types of systems here. Anything that they would deem religion. Religion. And this is one of the popular arguments amongst those who really support many of these secret society groups and occult organizations. They say religion is a control system, a control structure. They're not entirely wrong. It's the abuse of religious contexts that has been done that has led to that. It's man-made dogma derived from these religious ideologies of the peoples that has brought that about. It's not religion itself. So they will always condemn religion, and at the same token, they hypocritically uphold the same type of thing within the secret occult fraternities. They're doing the same thing. They just call it something different. So it's all a control system. I mean, when you acknowledge that, it's all control systems. That's what this overarching system that they're talking about alludes to. But let's go ahead and let's get back to this. Initiates were often revered as holy men by the laity and were spared the distractions of daily life in order to keep alive the flames of the inherent magic of life. However, within certain of the more secretive societies, the Luciferic consciousness has managed to take hold with disastrous consequences for mankind. And I'm going to pause for a moment here. And now I think this is where the authors hit the nail on the head with all of this. They recognize the inherent fallacy and problem with many of these secret society groups and the system itself that has been derived from those groups, and we'll get to that in a moment here. For millennia, human history has been a chronicle of the power struggle of man against man and of man against nature. In his over-physical five-sense perception state, that which man could acquire for himself as an individual has been the main motivating factor, often seen as essential for survival. Survival has been perceived as for the fittest, the most powerful, the wealthiest, and this has perpetuated imbalance all the way to its most bitter conclusions, which are war, bondage, and persecution. Domination through conflict and might over meekness has seen eons of feudalism and social hierarchy in the worst possible expressions. To perpetuate their claim of deserved superiority over the masses, the rulers of the past have explored innumerable ways to achieve their goals, both subtle and violent. One method has been recognized as being the most effective and has been employed by this ruling aristocracy throughout the world since prehistory right up to the present day, through governments, businesses, and monarchies. That is, by keeping the masses in ignorance of their true potential and power, to keep them at a low level of education, preoccupying their minds away from who they truly are from birth, to manipulate them via a systematic education program in all areas of their existence, into channeling their lives in pursuit of handing over power to their rulers. If this can be done in such a way that the masses has no recourse and believe this condition to be the only way to live, then they will be highly unlikely to challenge the status quo. And I'm going to pause for a moment here, folks. Is all this resonating with you? Because this is the absolute truth. We have, as a society, been manipulated in this way for a very, very long time. And they're telling you in no uncertain terms what it is that creates this divide within the masses, this cultural divide, this class division, if you want to call it that. We have this elitist ruling class, and of course we have the rest of us. And they create this division on purpose, and they do that by information control. Let's put it that way. It's information control. That's what secrecy has always been about. It's not to keep dangerous knowledge from the hands of the unworthy who would misuse it. Well, certainly human nature has shown us time and again that those that have access to this knowledge and this power will misuse it. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, it has been said. And that's what's wrong here. They think somehow that they are superior in the handling of this knowledge, so they've kept it hidden from the masses, and then you have this infighting at the topmost levels of these secret society groups and these occult fraternities who keep this hidden knowledge of the ages from the masses, And they wield this knowledge against the masses in a bid for more worldly power for themselves and advantage for themselves. And they do so by keeping us ignorant of these things. They like you to mock this type of stuff. They like you to think things like magic is silly nonsense, when in fact, it's a real science. Causal engineering, if you prefer some more modern approaches and terms to describe it, that's what magic is. It really works. They know it works. They don't necessarily agree or understand what are the forces and the machinations behind how it works, but they do recognize that it works, and they implement it and use it all the time. They have many tools in their tool belts that they use against us. And that's what's being revealed here. You see, there's this class, this elitist class, that has used this knowledge against us and held the mote of ignorance over us for the longest of times. And that helps them to set up this system, which is going to be a transmutative system in the very near future. It's going to transmute itself into what we would acknowledge in biblical terms as the beast system. It's coming. It's almost entirely snapped into place, ladies and gentlemen. Let's pay attention to this next part here. The present system has been engineered throughout the ages by these imbalanced secret societies in order to perpetuate their wealth and power. It is they who designed the system, and it is only they who know every individual link in the chains which have kept us in bondage for millennia. Today, we have a global network of secret societies, initiates into the mysteries, whose only motivation is to serve the Luciferic consciousness. How many times have we heard such phrases as, "It's the money men who really rule the world," but how many of us realize the accuracy of this sentiment and its full implications? And I'm going to pause for a moment. So now what's being revealed here by likely some folks who are insiders into one or several of these occult fraternities, they're telling you that at the topmost levels of all these occult fraternities is an inner circle, and these are the ones that are responsible for snapping this system into place that we have today, designing and engineering this system through the course of the ages, through time, to achieve more and more precise control over the rest of us. And of course, they're pointing out here, it's the money men who really rule the world. Well, it kind of is, and it's kind of not. That's all a portion of it. Let's read on and see what else they could tell us here. Armed with vast amounts of wealth and esoteric knowledge, the negative secret society network has flourished as the aristocracy of the world. Power, wealth, and information has been gained and maintained via warfare, exploitation, and especially in the last century, through control of the world's economic systems. Collectively, these organizations, led by the self-appointed global elite, have become known as the Brotherhood. Gonna pause for a moment here. The Brotherhood. This is the inner circle within the inner circle of all these secret society groups. These are the self-appointed elite, the Olympians, they like to call themselves. Also known by the rest of us sometimes as the Illuminati. They do exist. Only the names have changed through the course of time. This really is the power structure in this world. The Brotherhood. Let's read on. These days, initiation into the various secret societies which form the Brotherhood is relatively easy. Potential initiates are handpicked and invited to join certain exclusive clubs, such as the Freemasons and certain mutually beneficial business cartels, which are merely Brotherhood front organizations. Going to pause for a moment. Now, any Freemason will tell you that they don't recruit. No, they don't. You have to go knock at the door and ask to come in. They tell you they don't recruit. And perhaps the Freemasons don't recruit, but this is where most people know, hey, I'm going to go down there because it seems like these guys have it all together. It's the old boy network, if you will. Many join Freemasonry just because of the social benefits. They understand they're part of the club. They'll get a square deal down at the car dealership. They get preferred business dealings. They take care of each other. This is known. This is publicly known. They give each other preferential treatment. And they do so by using secret signs and signals to one another, handshakes and little phrases that they'll say to one another. Are you a traveling man? Yes, from west to east, they'll tell each other. And it sounds like witty banter or just nonsensical banter, but they know they've communicated an awful lot in that little exchange, haven't they? But anyway, let's continue with the reading here. Candidates are tempted with the promise that once accepted into the organization, many personal advantages would be on offer. Improved career prospects with promotions easier to achieve, more prosperous lifestyles, and obstacles to success would be made to disappear. In other words, this mutually beneficial old boy network would take care of its own. I'm going to pause for a moment. I think that's what I just pointed out. This certainly holds true. This is how they operate. But let's continue. The only way for the Brotherhood to prosper is to keep the world in ignorance of who they really are. By convincing people that they are little more than robots, they can use those robots to perpetuate their power base. Power always seeks power and will never stop until all power is focused solely in the hands of the most ambitious. I'm going to pause for a moment here. And that is a very accurate statement. Those who seek power are not satisfied with just a little. They want it all. And the most ambitious is the one that will receive it all. That's why they have no compunction with stepping on people on their way to the top. That's what our whole model of business in Western culture is based on. Doesn't matter how you get to the top or who you hurt on the way to the top or who you step on to get to the top. Once you're on top, you want to maintain your position on top and get all the power and influence and wealth for yourself. The more for you, the better. This is a way in which capitalism has been exploited and abused. They understand human psychology very well. Let's read on. In the last century, with the acceleration in technological development, particularly in terms of communication, the elite have sought to realize their ambitions more swiftly, with more blatant and definable aims. The creation of a world government, a world currency and bank, a world army, the control of public opinion culminating in a microchipped population connected to a central computer, the destruction of any alternatives to their system, and to make huge amounts of money in the process. This sinister plan by the elite has become popularly known by researchers as the New World Order. Going to pause for a moment here. And essentially that is what they are attempting to build, and we see all the pieces snapping into place year after year after year, don't we? Let's continue on. The situation within the hierarchy of the elite is necessarily complex, as the activities are concealed behind a large number of front organizations of varying degrees of secrecy. Everything is based upon the pyramid principle, with the very few elite at the apex as the all-seeing eye, and ultimate controller right down to those at the bottom who, in the largest numbers, have no idea about the true agenda which is being ministered to them from above. Through the levels of initiation from the bottom to the top, only the most ambitious and ruthless are filtered out to occupy more and more select positions of power and knowledge of the ultimate agenda. This is further enforced at each step of the pyramid by the process of compartmentalization, which is the operation of the need-to-know principle. This way, even those upon the same level of the pyramid know very little of their fellow initiates' business and role within the overall plan. The vast majority of people working to further the elite's aims of a new world order do so unknowingly, but others whose names constantly recur will have a pretty good idea of what is happening. And I'm going to pause for a moment here. And most certainly, this holds true. It's compartmentalization, one of the big key components to maintaining secrecy, maintaining this mote of ignorance to the public around these various occult bits of information that they would like for you not to know. It's about maintaining status quo and power, and this system that they've built around this idea, well, it is kind of a self-perpetuating and self-enforcing system. We see that, and like I said, this aligns perfectly with the allegory presented to us by the movie The Matrix. It's been designed this way on purpose. It's been engineered, and that's what we need to really get a grip on. It's not something where all of these things just kind of coincidentally, accidentally fell into place in the way that they have, and now here we are, and we have this big, grand financial system, and this whole straw man identity system built around it, the legal fiction. This was all designed very insidiously, using these old occult principles that most of the public have no conception of. No conception of the straw man identity, the corporation, the dead entity. It is the reign of dead matter. It is the world of shells being built around us. It's a corporate and legal fiction that much of our society has been built and fabricated around, and it's the perpetuation of this fabrication, of this illusion, that is the system we see. And this is the forerunner for the beast system as outlined in the book of Revelation in the Bible. Of course, we'll get there. Let's read on. The USA was founded by the elite for the very reason of executing the plan to control the world. It is this nation which is the hub of its wheel of influence. Christopher Columbus and his voyage were backed and financed by the Brotherhood, with his ship's sails bearing a red cross on a white background, the symbol of the Knights Templar, which was the chivalric order who went on to become the Freemasons, etc., whose symbol is the red rose or the cross upon a white background, which represents blood and semen in satanic ritual. Almost a century before Columbus, the Templars had reached North America and had already begun trading with and exploiting the native nations there. Gonna pause for a moment. So now these authors are claiming the Templars were here first. Well, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that is so. Isn't there? We see so much that has been hidden from us and not taught to us in our public school system. Still, largely today, it is acknowledged by the public school system that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well, that's not true. There's been people here for as far back as we can look. So there's nothing here to suggest that Christopher Columbus discovered this new world. New world, new world order. You think there's a connection there? Well, most certainly there is. The new Atlantis. All of these things have been known by the secret society groups for a very long time. So they claim here the Templars reached North America first before Columbus, and certainly they have, but there were other people here prior to the Templars. But the Templars are an important portion of the concept here being presented. They are an important historical group connected to the modern day inception of what they call the Brotherhood. So let's go ahead and we'll read on here. So since its discovery, the history of the USA has been the history of ethnic cleansing, imposition of power, slavery, mass exploitation, and the worship of wealth. The U.S. president, generally accepted as the most powerful man in the world, is a slave to his prime allegiance, the Brotherhood. Gonna pause for a moment. So now there's an implication being made that the president of the United States of America always is nothing more than a puppet or a slave to his prime allegiance, and that is that of the Brotherhood. So they will not put anyone in that office who does not bend a knee to the Brotherhood. Keep that in mind. Even he is probably not a top-level member, as it is wiser to hide behind the tools of corruption in anonymity and to pull the strings in this way. I do not seek to condemn these people for their beliefs. Everyone should be free to develop their own belief system, but I feel that they are seriously misguided in the ways they seek to impose them on the majority and conceal the truth. They have allowed themselves to become slaves to, and also the major implementers of the Luciferic consciousness, which has taken this planet to the brink of destruction. Gonna pause for a moment. So it would seem to me that even some of the insiders in some of these occult fraternities are beginning to understand what's happened. And I'm not saying there aren't good people in some of these groups. I think there are. I think there's a lot of individuals trying to work for the good side here, but they've been misguided and corrupted and taught the wrong things, given a faulty foundation, and the things that they believe and espouse are based upon these false foundations, and therefore they unknowingly elevate the evil that's been done here. And a lot of this relates back to what the authors of this piece are calling the Luciferic consciousness. And they're not wrong. The Luciferic consciousness, this is a core tenet of what has happened in this world, and what guides and directs and steers many of these occult fraternities and secret society groups, especially at the topmost levels. Let's read on. Presenting the information concisely is a difficult operation due to the complexity of the interconnections between people, organizations, and events. And once again, the authors are not wrong here. He says, I have attempted to simplify the situation into a manageable amount, but it remains merely the tip of the iceberg. It should be remembered also that nothing is black and white. No one is good or evil. Such simple distinctions are part of the manipulation which encourages us to judge our neighbors in order to create conflict. So I'm going to pause for a moment here, folks. So now this seems like a defensive stance by somebody who has come from the inside. Not totally wrong. Not totally wrong, but there are absolute good and absolute evil as a premise that do occur, and there are some people who do fit those descriptions aptly. But most of us fall somewhere in the middle because it is a constant struggle between our good and our bad qualities, isn't it? And that's not incorrect. So the way he's framing this, he's correct in a lot of ways, because many of the people that get involved with these occult fraternities, they think they're doing good. They really do. And you could use the same connection in other aspects of our society and culture. Look at our medical system. Well, these doctors and nurses and all of these practitioners in the medical field, they truly and firmly believe they are doing what is right and what is good. And in the meantime, a lot of people have been led like sheep to the slaughter, trusting these individuals with their lives and their health, and not being given full disclosure on what they're participating in. And of course, you could connect the dots there all you would like, and look back at the events of the past few years and understand exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need to go there, though. Not in the context of this conversation. But next, the authors go on here, and they name this next subheading Freemasonry. And this is an important type of a gateway into deeper occult fraternities when it gets down to it. So let's read on and see what he says here. The basic recruitment of members to further the elite's plans is through the secret society network of Freemasonry, which is the latest incarnation of the Christian military order known as the Knights Templar, who gained staggering riches and wealth of esoteric knowledge during the Crusades, in which the righteous Christians were dispatched to the Holy Land with free rein to slaughter the Jews and Muslims in a series of campaigns between the 11th and 13th centuries. I'm going to pause for a moment here. Now, this is kind of an oversimplification of things in my estimation, but certainly he's not incorrect. The Freemasons have established themselves as one of the torchbearers for the Templar tradition. And the Templars were a huge deal. not only back in that era, but even in our modern times. This secret society group is central to everything going on right now. But I digress on that point. Let's get back to it. The vast majority of members are on the first 3 rungs of the 33-level hierarchy and have no idea of the hidden agenda. Once initiated into the lowest level, the first of the 33 degrees, vows are taken to pledge allegiance to the society above all else. Most initiates are willing to do this, as the temptation of power, wealth, and knowledge is hard to refuse. It is hinted that there are penalties to pay for betraying their society and revealing its secrets, but at this level, the organization is viewed by its members as little more than a secretive social club with a morality based upon chivalry. Certain of what appear to be esoteric secrets are revealed to them upon initiation as a taster for what is to come, as long as the initiate remains faithful to the order. Money is then paid by the initiate in order to progress to the second degree through a ceremony involving the revelation of yet further secret knowledge, with the promise of more to come at each stage. Going to pause for a moment here. This is how they do it. They dangle the carrot before you, and they lead you down the trail, walking along each step of the way. More light, more knowledge at each degree. Initiation into higher degrees requires increasingly larger sums of money, and still the clues keep coming. Promises of wonderful arcane knowledge are continual, yet the actual knowledge revealed remains encoded and only serves to whet the appetite. No one is ever given the full scenario, only pieces of what appears to be a picture of the most awesome significance. As more and more is revealed, and the higher up the ladder the initiate is allowed, the greater are the personal perks provided and doorways opened in terms of career and social status. Moreover, the warnings against transgression of the secret society's rules become blatant and more sinister at each step. It is impossible to achieve high levels of initiation within Freemasonry unless one is handpicked by those of the higher degrees. In order to do this, one must meet their criteria of wealth, status, social class, and character type. By the time the 20th degree is reached, a minimum of professional level income is required to fund progression through the system. The result of this financially dependent progression is that the top-level members of the Brotherhood elite are among the richest and most powerfully influential people in the world. They are also responsible directly and indirectly for most of the money or power-based crime, such as the illegal drugs industry, political assassinations, Satanism, and mind control, which goes on every day all around the world. Gonna pause for a moment here, folks. So now these are some pretty heavy-duty claims being made by the author or authors of this piece. And certainly, I think there is some level of truth to what's being presented. But as always, I'll leave it to you to use your discernment to this. We can't deny that these things do go on, and likely there is a tie to some secret society group at the topmost levels. But is this really it? It seems to be Freemasonry is taking the brunt of the hit here, at least in the eyes of these gentlemen. Now, it is a well-known facet of the occult fraternities that Freemasonry is a recruiting ground for occultists and some of these higher-up occult-level organizations. It is a recruiting ground. But I don't think it necessarily is always directly tied to a lot of the stuff that goes on. Maybe indirectly through some other higher level secret society group or inner circle within that many of these things tie together. And once again, this gets more or less to the semantics of it all. All of these secret society groups all have the same foundational belief systems when it comes down to it. They all teach and espouse many of the same things, often with selectively different language to express the ideas, but it's all the same thing. And at the topmost level of all of them, they're interconnected in this inner circle within the inner circle. This is what we would refer to as the Illuminati, and I think that is wherein the true power lies and where more of this stuff is directed from than, say, the greater bulk of the Freemasonic organization itself. It is the largest and most well-known secret society group currently in the Western world, so that being the case, it seems to take the brunt of the blame, for a lot of things. It's the proverbial scapegoat, if you will, and there is another occult connotation attached to that as well. But let's continue on with the reading. At the apex of the pyramid of the Brotherhood are the select few who actually know the full agenda of the organization. These privileged elite have become known as the Illuminati, which is Latin for illuminated ones. Going to pause for a moment. So the author or authors of this piece also acknowledge what I was just telling you. This has been the culmination of my studies into this for many years. It seems to be that this is true. There is an organization that exists, which is, or as at one time was called the Illuminati, or is referred to as the Illuminati, that do run a lot of things in this world from this centralized control position, and it does constitute an inner circle within an inner circle. So back to the reading. All other members, nearly 5 million worldwide, are ignorant of the true purpose of their individual organization as a front for the Illuminati. Only the most suitable are selected to rise in the ranks, those recognized as being wealthy, ambitious, and corrupt enough to perpetuate the ultimate goal, which is world domination. No one but the Illuminati actually knows anything of importance and therefore cannot betray the game plan. Everyone else provides a front, a smokescreen of ignorance and misinformation, and all must offer complete obedience to the will of their organization or be banished or worse. The same thing also happens in our universities, whereby particularly talented scholars are approached with magnificent offers of wealth and status in order to follow unofficial secret research programs into such topics as UFOs, psychic warfare, and advanced energy sources. Betrayal of the Brotherhood is the worst crime possible in the eyes of its members and is ultimately punishable by death. The Brotherhood is all-powerful. All top-level members of the police and military forces around the world are placed there through the Brotherhood as Brotherhood tools. Judges and lawyers, media moguls, businessmen, and politicians are recruited so that no member of the Brotherhood elite is ever in danger of being held accountable by the system for any crime or misdemeanor. Going to pause for a moment here, folks. And even if they are found guilty, they're never punished for it, are they? Well, we could look at some prime examples of that right now in the political spectrum, but I'll digress from that point. Let's continue. The Brotherhood can, and quite literally does, get away with murder because it is also the law which opposes it. If a non-Brotherhood member should slip through the net and achieve high status, then there are ways to ensure that such people are unable to achieve their full potential. For example, I doubt if Prince Charles will ever fulfill his right of kingship. Gonna pause for a moment. So this is showing how dated this piece is. And we'll see. I'm gonna finish reading that portion to see what it is the author says here. And maybe I could offer a counterpoint to that. So he says, for example, he doubts that Prince Charles will ever fulfill his right of kingship, as he has publicly refused to enroll with the Freemasons. Oh, is that so? He's a member of the occult societies, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter if it's the Freemasons or not. See, I think a lot of these people put a lot of undue emphasis on the Freemasons. Yes, it's the most well-known organization, and it is a recruiting grounds for these other occult fraternities, but that's not wherein all the power lies. Do you get it? So I think this guy is a little off base in his assessment there, because Charles didn't publicly enroll with the Freemasons. Well, sometimes it's not always the Freemasons. There's other occult fraternities that these people, especially the royal lineage, belong to, that have more power and sway and are more closely aligned with this inner circle within the inner circle known as the Illuminati. So let's continue on. So he says, it infiltrates every area of our society at all levels, but at the top, in the highest social and monetary bracket, the Brotherhood prevails almost in total. It is the single largest vehicle for the perpetuation of the Luciferic consciousness on Earth. One of the ways which the faithfulness of members is ensured, especially in the higher levels, is by the insistence that the initiated give details of their most intimate secrets to the organization, so that if any transgression of the rules were to occur, then this information would be revealed and used to publicly destroy the individual concerned. As an example of this, one Masonic branch, the Skull and Bones Society, centered around the Harvard and Yale universities, was founded on opium money, is blatantly racist, has had some particularly bizarre rituals, including an initiation which includes lying in a coffin with a ribbon tied around the genitalia whilst masturbating and shouting out one's greatest sexual fantasies. It boasts amongst its members, who, remember, swear complete allegiance to the society above all other commitments, George Bush, Percy Rockefeller, Winston Lord, the one-time CFR chairman, and 9 members of the board of the Morgan Guarantee Trust. And it says, see House of Rothschild. So going to pause for a moment. So all of this stuff, if you've been researching what you would call conspiracy culture or the secret society groups or anything of the sort for a long time, none of this information that he's saying here is anything new to most of you listening, I would take it. But certainly it does give you an indication of understanding as to how deep this does go. How much influence these secret society groups do have. They do have a lot. And it's very easy for them to maintain their secrecy with their associations with it, especially when you could openly see out there some of the ways they unofficially, or officially, if you want to call it that, meet in these secret meetings at various times during the course of a year to plan policy for upcoming events across the world stage. The Bilderberg meeting was staunchly denied for a very long time, but now it's open record. Now it's publicly acknowledged. They even put a list of the attendees of the meetings. Of course, the meetings are still held in secret, no media, no cameras, no recording going on, and it's all considered unofficial talks. But they do tell you when and where it's at now and who's attending. In years past, they would staunchly deny any such thing even existed or went on. It's been going on since 1954. But it wasn't until sometime around, what was it, about 2012 or 2013, they even admitted the group even existed. And people will say, well, how could they keep a secret like that? Well, this is exactly how. Same thing every year. You have political movers and shakers meeting at Bohemian Grove, at the Bohemian Club. No cameras allowed, no media allowed. In this interconnected modern world, how is it that these groups still could have secret meetings? Well, they do, don't they? It's undeniable. It's publicly known now. I mean, it's publicly admitted. And it's only after people who really began questioning things and looking at it, began calling them out on it, that they even decided to acknowledge it exists in the public paradigm. And now here we are. Now people know, and now nobody cares, and that's the problem. We've been so programmed with this complacency type of attitude that it just doesn't matter anymore to these elitists, these self-proclaimed elitists. They think they have such a lock, stock on control at this point that the American public and the world public is so brainwashed that they could do anything they want and get away with it, that they just don't care that we're talking about it. In times past, well, this would be heavily censored. Probably still is censored, shadow banned to some degree, but stuff like this nowadays seems to be commonly known by a lot of people. And yet, we still have the denial of it going on. A lot of people look at this stuff and view it only as entertainment, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake. That's why they've actually created this whole genre called conspiracy culture. It's devised as a form of entertainment, really. I mean, they allow us to talk about these things. And many people listen because, well, they're curious and they find it fascinating and they want to be entertained and they want to think about it. But in their heart of hearts, they don't believe that any of it's true. And that in and of itself is a mistake, because all these things are true and demonstrable. And all that does is further promote the idea that they could do whatever they want and dangle it in your face and you still won't believe it. And we see that goes on in other facets of things in media today. They tell you what they're doing. They put it in plain sight and people don't object because they've been programmed and conditioned in this way. It's the psychopomp idea when it comes down to it. Anyway, let's continue with the reading here before we close it out here tonight. The author says, also associated with Freemasonry within the elite's own hierarchy are other esoteric societies, such as the Grand Orient Lodges, the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar, P2, and the Black Nobility. The Brotherhood owns the law. They own the military. They own the oil companies, pharmaceutical companies, and just about everything which provides fuel for the status quo. It sets the standard for education. It sets the curriculum. It plants seeds via the media and education systems of what will later become, through tender nurturing, power-hungry, dissatisfied, spiritually unaware slaves to their system. If it was not so sinister, it would be purely perfect in all its encompassing design. While the first 3-degree Masons and Round Table members are raising money for charity and enjoying relatively harmless social events, their superiors in the craft are organizing wars, drug-pushing, coordinating assassinations, mind control, raping and murdering young children in satanic abuse, and formulating plans for world domination. I'm going to pause for a moment here. And I think the veil's being torn away in the times we're living in today. All of these things are beginning to become exposed to the public. Now, if you go back maybe 10 or 15 years and you were talking about this stuff then, people would laugh it off and say you're a kook, you're a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy nut. Well, now people are beginning to see the actual evidence of all of this unveiling before their eyes, and yet they still turn a blind eye to it and refuse to accept it's going on. This is called cognitive dissonance, and it is a problem we have in society. And you have stark admissions from a lot of these people, and you have exposés like this one by people who ostensibly, it would appear, have been on the inside of at least probably some lower level portion of one of these secret society groups, telling you what it's all about. And people still deny. Let's read on, though. The author says, history has convinced me that it is possible to get away with virtually any crime as long as it is on a large enough scale. The U.S. presidents, also 33rd degree Masons, are financed into the position not as leaders of men, but as a tool of the Brotherhood. All allegiance comes secondary to the bonds within their secret society on pain of death. Political systems are also a front for the Brotherhood elite, not as representatives of the people, elected by the people for the people, but as tools of and for the Brotherhood. Science is controlled to the benefit of the elite. Wars are created and manipulated to the benefit of the elite. Every time a bomb is dropped or a tank built, ultimately it is the multinational businesses who profit, especially the oil industries and world bankers. All is Brotherhood controlled. The scale of manipulation in all areas of the status quo is almost immeasurable, and for this reason, virtually unbelievable to most prisoners of the system. And this he's not incorrect about. People cannot conceive of how deep that this whole conspiracy runs, and it is a vast conspiracy that conscripts all sides of the argument. It is a devious system that has been built and put in place. It's been engineered, and we see this system present all around us. And as discussed earlier, it is a self-perpetuating and self-enforcing system. That's the problem. People just go along to get along because they don't want to be inconvenienced. You want to be able to participate in society, right? Who doesn't? And we know no other way to do things because this is the world that's been built for us. It's been this way for several centuries now. We would know no other way to do things. If we had to go back to, say, something like the barter system in order to exchange goods and services, how would that work? We wouldn't know where to go or how to go about doing that. Would we? Because of how our society has been built, and it's been built primarily around the economic system. And this is an important facet of all of this, and this falls back into other things we've discussed in the past, inclusive of the document, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Because this is the type of warfare being promulgated against the public at large. It's a type of domestic warfare wherein economics has been leveraged against the bulk of us. And we are still manipulated by that. The price of goods and services has gone significantly up over the course of the past several years. And it's at a place right now where it's almost untenable anymore for most people. There's a lot of dissatisfaction surrounding that at the current time. But this is all engineered as well, because it's going to bring about a type of financial collapse of sorts. But they'll prop it back up again with another iteration of the system. A new system, if you will. It's not going to be anything new. It's the same system, just transmuted into a more effectual type of a system of control. You see, the whole plan here is to destroy the world economy in order to bring about a one world currency, a one world bank, and in fact, have they not created the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements, the central bank of the central bank? They have one central bank of all the central banks. Now, all they have to do is unify all forms of currency into one world currency, and they intend to make it a digital currency with no actual value behind it, except for the faith of the system, or the faith in the system. That's why they're pushing ideas like cryptocurrency and electronic transfers and all of this stuff. That's why this is such a big topic these days. That's what they want to build. The new system will be a system of digital currency. And in order to get there, they have to crash all the markets right now as it is. And they have to get people to stop using cash, a physical means of exchange. They want you to use entirely an electronic or digital means of exchange. And how do they get there? Well, they devalue the dollar. They crash whole economies. They hyperinflate prices across the board of goods and services, and we're seeing that in record numbers here today. And in so doing, they cause people to go broke. And it gets so bad that you have a hard time scraping together enough money to pay for food. And if you're not self-sufficient and can't grow your own food or do anything like that, you fall victim to the system. You're at their mercy. And that's exactly what they want. They want you to get so uncomfortable and so desperately poor that you cry out for help from your government to fix it. And they have a pre-made solution to the problem. It's called universal basic income. They fully intend to roll this out because this is another means of control. And they also want to switch to, like I had said earlier, a completely digital system. They don't want a physical means of exchange. They want everything a recorded hash on a blockchain. All goods and services exchanged on a blockchain utility, a public ledger system, wherein they could track every purchase, every activity from cradle to grave. That's exactly what they want. This gives them the ultimate type of control, even to the point where they will give you programmable digital currency, programmable money. You think it's not possible? They have a prototype system in place. It's called the food stamp system here in the United States. They give you a card, they put X amount of dollars on it, and you could only spend it on certain things. You could only buy food items with it. That's a prototype. They can do that with a universal basic income of a digital sort. Programmable digital money. Whereas you could only use this to buy certain things, they control your buying power that way. And they could also program expiration dates on it, whereby if you don't use that money by a certain date or time, it expires and it's gone, forever disappearing from your bank account or from your account. From your account. This is the future they envision, ladies and gentlemen. This is the system they want to set up. This is the grander beast system that our current system is a predecessor to. You see, it's taken time. It's taken time to acclimate people to the encroachment of this system upon their lives and for them to become hopelessly attached to the system. And now we're hopelessly attached to the system. We know no other way to live, and they're going to pull the rug out from under us. But they will have a ready-made solution in play. It's this digital one-world currency, complete with a universal basic income. But you can only use that basic income to make certain purchases or use towards certain things, and it will invariably have an expiration because they have told you in no uncertain terms what they intend for you. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's what they tell you at the World Economic Forum. Just another spokes piece for this brotherhood. Pretty insidious when you think about it, and it's taken an awful long time to set up and establish this system, but it's all based primarily in economic circumstances. And this is where the Knights Templar has its place in this. The Knights Templar were the first international bankers. They were the first central banking system. They were the predecessor of things to come. And now it is this very spirit that underlies all of this entire economic system instantiated by the Brotherhood that we have currently in existence here, the next steps of which will be its transmutation into the beast system of the apocalypse, the beast system of Revelation, as has been exposed and talked about by the Bible. And most people still don't have a clue what it's talking about. But we're seeing these pieces snap together in real time before our eyes on the world stage. And there are those who seem to have an inside tract, a seat on the inside looking at this, that are realizing what's been done here and realizing how it's the negative side that has been propped up and elevated and is in control currently. And that's the problem. The problem is not technology or these scientific developments or anything of the sort in and of themselves. You see, they're tools. And a tool can be used for good or it can be used for bad. It can be used or misused. The problem is the development of these new tools that we have is being guided and directed by the dark side, ladies and gentlemen, and that is where the problem lies. But there is good news. We can still change that. We can still use these tools for good. The problem, though, is many of them have been weaponized against us for what they call dual use. You see, before any technology is rolled out to the public for public consumption, it is put through its paces by the military-industrial complex, which finds every possible way to weaponize and manipulate and utilize a technology for militaristic purposes first. And then we get the scraps in the public sector for use for commercial uses. This is called dual-use technology. Your cell phone in your pocket is a very prime example of this. Cell phone technology, as we have it today, existed in some state or form as far back as the 1960s and has been put through its paces by the military-industrial complex before it has been released for public consumption for commercial uses, and each and every cell phone that is out there in the market today is a dual-use platform. They have backdoors built into them. They collect data from you. They collect audio from you. They collect video from you without your knowing about it. They collect your location, your geographic information. They collect all sorts of metadata on you that can be used in military or police applications. That's what they're for. That's what their primary use is. Now, secondarily, they are a useful tool. You have all of the world's knowledge base at your fingertips with a cell phone. You could contact somebody immediately through various means. You could talk to them. You can video chat with them. You can take pictures. It is a fabulous piece of technology, for sure. And it does have good usages. The problem is it's been misused. It was purposely designed to be addictive. Uses blue light in order to hit on receptors in your brain so that your brain releases endorphins. And social media that's been specifically designed for use with these types of devices has also been weaponized in this way. It's been purposely made addictive. This is part of the problem. This is how dual use comes into play. This is what we have going on in the world. This is all part of the greater system that the Brotherhood has established. They do like to call themselves the Brotherhood because this is a broad encapsulation of all the various occult fraternities and secret society groups, or the inner circles thereof. And it goes across the board to different corporate positions and government agencies and stuff as well. The Brotherhood. One of the terms they use to refer to themselves. Also, they like the term cabal. And we've gotten into that on past episodes here as to why they like that term as well. And they also refer to themselves as the Olympians because they truly think themselves to be the gods of this place at the topmost levels. The Illuminati, the Brotherhood. They've been working towards their goal here of world domination for a very long time. They want to be, in no uncertain terms, the gods of this place. And they think they can do that through the use of high technology and through the establishment of various systems to control the masses that they have established. The system, as it stands right now, soon to be the beast system, an amalgamation of all the worst parts of the various things that they've constructed and engineered over the course of time. The beast system, which constitutes this artificial intelligence control grid that they want to establish and set in place, that collects all of your biometric, genomic, medical, financial, and other data in a centralized utility, complete with a social credit score to control you lock, stock, and barrel from cradle to grave. With a digital currency system, an economic system, this is how they do it. Economics has been weaponized against the people in what they call the Quiet War. Domination, financial domination, economic domination of the people. What do economists do, ladies and gentlemen? They are social engineers. I've told you that time and again here in the past. It is true. Economics as a system is nothing more than the measure of social energy. And they vampirize your social energy. And they could steer and guide and direct your behavior with this tool that they've misused to do so, that they call economy. One of the primary weapons that's been wielded against us, and most people don't recognize it. Everybody recognizes the pinch when there's not enough money left at the end of the month. We all acknowledge the ridiculous runaway inflation going on. It's taken a little bit of a pinch on most. And we're seeing the havoc being wreaked upon humanity with these tools that they've used of economics. This is one of the primary tenets of their system that they built based upon a scientific discipline known as cybernetics. Whole systems control, that is the science of cybernetics, used in the guise of economics to control the social energy of the population, to control you, to direct you. That's what these people want, absolute power. That's what this Brotherhood has attempted to establish, and they're getting closer to their ultimate goal of ultimate control. That digital panopticon control grid that they want to put in place. That beast system. We are at the precipice. But that's the history of how we got there. A brief history of how we got there was through the inclinations and guidance of the secret society groups and occult fraternities, directing certain people groups behind the scenes, infiltrating into positions of power in corporations and governments around the world, using think tank groups. We didn't even get very far into this paper that we were reading here. There are various other organizations that lie at the heart of all of the basic overarching conspiracy. The next of which, mentioned in the paper, is the Round Table Group, the Rhodes Round Table Group, which has an important and rich history as well in all of this. But they all use the same basic premise and organization like the secret society groups. It's all an initiatory rite within these different groups, going through a degree system higher and higher up the ladder, with a pull from above from somebody at the top to get you there if you show enough ambition and enough trustworthiness in their eyes to keep the secrets, and if they have some dirt on you so they can blackmail you if they need to at some point. That's how you get there. That's what they've instantiated. And they've established this system over the course of the centuries at least from the time of the Templars. Actually, even before then, but the Templars, like I said, were a central point to a lot of this because they introduced the world's first central banking system to the world. And it was from there that the rest of our culture has now been built and established, and we have the systems in place today that we have based upon this. So we have this system of manipulation and control already in place, put there by this Brotherhood, as they would like to call themselves. And that's the whole premise here that we need to understand in order to see what's going on in the world. It's all directed from a central source at the highest, most levels of power in this world. It is a secret organization that exists, that does so based upon the occult fraternities and the teachings of the old secrets of the ages, and how they maintain this moat of ignorance around the public to some of the occult sciences and some of the methodologies that they use to do things and get things done, some of the secrets. And a lot of it has to do with the rising through the levels of power within these occult fraternities and leveraging certain principles in certain ways to get it done. And we see that they've succeeded in establishing a system of economic conquest that they are trying to now transmute in the perfect alchemical wedding into the beast system. And that's the whole point to all of it. And this is what these two gentlemen, Ivan Fraser and Mark Beeston, have attempted to expose in this piece. Some of the faces, or facades, if you will, the fronts that this Brotherhood puts on in order to get things done. They present themselves to the public as philanthropists and people who really want what's best for everyone. They care so much. That's what they tell you. But what they don't tell you is they want to control you. That's what it's ultimately about. It's about elevating themselves. Not for the improvement for all. That's why we have such a wealth disparity in this world. That's why we have all of the problems that we have. Because there are those who seek power and advantage for themselves at the expense of others in this world. And this whole system has been manipulated and engineered to exploit that principle. And that's where we sit right now. And of course, they have the ready-made solution for that, don't they? You see, they exploit the quote-unquote evils of capitalism in order to promote the ideology of socialism or communism, which is their ready-made solution for the problem. And how do they achieve that? Well, it's through the engineering and creation of this new beast system to counter that problem. That's what they'll tell you anyway, but it's further about control, more so than anything. And we sit at the precipice right now. So I hope this gives you good food for thought for tonight. The system and the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood being those who instantiated this system and engineered it into the reality that it is today through the course of time, using their patience and their long-term planning goals to get there. And now they're right there. And they see themselves at the precipice of transforming this system into a conglomerate beast system of control for the masses. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I'll remind you I appreciate each and every one of you. We'll catch you next time. Have a good one now. Discover the amazing, clinically proven health benefits of original Tahitian noni. Original Tahitian noni includes powerful antioxidants, adaptogens, nutrients, and phytonutrients to naturally boost energy levels, immune system function, and overall health. Meticulously sourced from French Polynesia, this is the original superfruit. Accept no imitations. Original Tahitian noni. Visit ATR Health at alchemicaltechrevolution.com and click on the Shop Here tab for more details.